So one of my commenters mentioned something about they liked uh, videos on obscure figures, and unfortunately, I don't really have too many obscure figures because I tend to buy major licenses. If they're obscure, it's generally because they're very high ticket figures that aren't produced in great amounts. But I do have one that's kind of interesting. So here's the 10 rarest Star Wars. Now at number 10, which is kind of weird because I'd read somewhere else that this is the rarest, but the Star Wars Vintage Blue Snaggletooth, and it is $1,100. Okay, and here it is, the Star Wars Vintage Blue Snaggletooth, and so if you go out on eBay, so it says $1,100. Uh, that must be in the blister pack because let me see. Highly sought after in his mint plastic bag. Okay, so maybe that one comes in a baggie. I believe that it was released to Sears in the Creature Cantina, and so I have not only or had I'm not sure about now. Still have Greedo, but I'm not sure about Walrus Man. Um, and I thought it also came with Hammerhead. So I had all four of those from the Creature Cantina. And the reason it's so rare is because it is an error. Um, so if you go out here on eBay, you could see quite a few selling. And so there's one mint reproduction. So people made reproductions. This figure, I don't know of any other figure that, maybe other ones did, but this is the rare one that has reproductions. So I think these are from China. Um, Now, this figure is not a reproduction, and I guarantee it is not a reproduction because I had it since I was a kid. And you can see it's heavily played with. So it's not worth 1100. There's no way I'm going to get 1100. I'm not even sure if I have the gun that goes with it. But I was selling my Star Wars figures because they're really not worth a lot. It's surprising, particularly played. I mean, if they're still in the blister pack, they could be worth a lot. But I was a kid, so I played with them. Um, and so there's actually two Snaggletooths, and this article out here goes through and talks about the origins of the blue Snaggletooth. It was released in 1978 as part of the Sears Star Wars Cantina Adventure Set. So we did live near a Sears, and so I assume my parents went out and bought, because I do remember having the Creature Cantina, and they must have got one of the early ones. The blue Snaggletooth figure was intended to represent the character Zutan. However, Kenner designers only had visual reference at the time, was a partial black and white photograph of the character. As a result, the blue Snaggletooth figure wore a blue uniform, had long legs, and wore boots. So apparently, the actual look was this one, the red Snaggletooth, which is considerably less. And I owned that one also. And I just remember when I was a kid being like, why do I have two Snaggletooths? I never could quite understand. It wasn't until a few years ago that I started selling them and discovered that the blue one was extremely rare. Um, let's see here. Kenner producers saw to their horror that Snaggletooth was short, at 3 feet tall, and wore a red suit. Kenner quickly scrapped the blue suited Snaggletooth and replaced him with the shorter and stouter red figure with bare feet and hands, but not before thousands of kids owned the inaccurate. And I'm one of the thousands of kids that owned this. So I've sold a lot of my Star Wars figures, but I kept this one because I thought it was kind of cool. So what can you get for, or what could I possibly get for this figure? Because I was getting like $5, $6, $7, maybe $11 for these figures. I have many of them still out there on eBay that haven't sold. So here's them for 400, and they have to mention no repro, because of the number of reproductions out there. And so you see him sell them for somewhere between $300 and $400. Now, if I look at this figure, let's see. What happened? Bring me back there. Give me the image. Ah, okay. So my belt is pretty much worn off. My hands look worse than that. The face looks pretty good. The boots, definite wear. So, ah, I probably could get something, I don't know, maybe in the $300 range. I'll probably keep it just because it's kind of cool. And it's the only Star Wars figure I own that is actually worth anything. The other ones were shockingly hardly worth anything. And I know that I mean I kept them my whole life, and really wasn't worth it because they did not appreciate in value. But of course I played with them, so and you could see the belt is just all worn off, all the paint on it, and a lot of the paint on. So I don't know. Some of them mention the notch in the boot, so I don't know if that's an even rarer version or what. The joints are fairly tight. He will stand and hold a pose. Can mine stand and hold a pose? Yes, he can. There he is, standing and holding a pose. Has his vintage weapon. I don't know if I have. I'd have to look around and see if I have the gun. I have a bunch of guns, and I think they only had, I want to say like 5 to 10 guns or something like that. And so a lot of characters reused the same gun. But anyway, so I don't know if the reproduction is like an exact reproduction, including the date and everything on it. I suppose I could look. Let's see. Is there something to identify it as a reproduction? Well, the fact that it's in great shape, perfect shape, kind of. Let's see. Hong Kong. Boy, it's hard to see. Yeah, I think they went and tried to duplicate it exactly. It's hard to see if that says 1978 on it. Kind of blurry. Let's see. Okay, that's clearer. Yeah. They really went and they just duplicated exactly. I don't know if this, yeah. So this is, it's worn away here, but there it looks like the painting is not exactly even, and so they went with not exactly even painting. So they appear to be trying to do an exact duplicate. So, oh, that might hurt the value somewhat. I don't know if there's any. I'd have to research this to see if there's any actual telltale signs. The skin looks a little different, like a little different color, but maybe that's just because mine's got dirt on it. Could be. Anyway, so this is probably maybe my rarest figure. I'll bet you some of my expensive robots are produced in low amounts. But this is the blue Snaggletooth from 1978, a real shocker to me as I was going through pricing the figures, and all of a sudden I come across this one that's selling for $300 and $400. So anyway, 1978 Kenner Blue Snaggletooth.